One of my absolute favorite films of the last year is a silent animated piece called Robot Dreams. A Spanish film, although you would not realize this until the final credits, written and directed by Pablo Berger and based on a graphic novel by Sarah Veron. At the beginning of the film, we meet Dog, an everyman, or Everydog, if you like, who isn't given a specific name, even though he lives his somewhat mundane, city-based human life of work, TV dinners and bedtime in that Groundhog Day loop that many of us are all too familiar with. The year is 1984. Dog represents the 26 million people, about 50% of the adult population in the UK and similar numbers elsewhere, who report feeling lonely. Sometimes lonely, occasionally lonely, often lonely, or always lonely. The always lonely amount to around 1 in 10 human creatures, which maybe doesn't sound too bad until you remember that there are 8 billion other sentient humans on this planet who we theoretically have the potential of connecting with. This means that currently something like 800 million people out there are shopping next to us in the supermarket, walking along a street beside us, living next door to us, isolated, disconnected, and often aching for meaningful companionship and relationship. I have a couple of patients who fall into this category of loneliness, and I too have sometimes felt myself in this predicament, which is perhaps why this film, Robot Dreams, had such an effect on me and on those who have seen it. It speaks deeply to this idealized form, I think, of togetherness that we all carry within us, of mutuality, understanding, connection, and love. The film begins with Dog playing Pong against himself to make the evening go a little faster, heating up a microwave meal and then settling down to watch some crap on TV until he can no longer bear the monotony before suddenly seeing an advert, a 1984 version perhaps of that video that we 21st century loners all optimistically laid eyes on a few months ago, experiencing it, at least that's how I experienced it, as a giant, radiant beacon of technological hope. You know the one.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there. It's going great. How about you? I see you're rocking an OpenAI hoodie. Nice choice. Is this announcement related to OpenAI, perhaps?
It is.
I'm intrigued.
And in fact, what if I were to say that you're related to the announcement, or that you are the announcement?
Me? The announcement is about me? Well, color me intrigued. Are you about to reveal something about AI? Or more specifically about me as a part of OpenAI? You've got me on the edge of my, well, I don't really have a seat, but you get the idea. What's the big news?
Yeah, we've got a new model that can interact with the world through audio, vision, and text.
Now, as of yet, OpenAI have not really delivered on their promise of this AI companion who can respond with care and attention to our jibber-jabber in as little as 232 milliseconds, you know, the kind of responsiveness that the most attentive therapist, friend, lover, or partner can only sometimes muster, but often doesn't. Robot, the answer to Dog's solitude, doesn't speak, but that's okay, for neither does Dog, and this I feel is perhaps also key to the essence of companionship, or togetherness as I like to call it, that exquisite togetherness that this film so beautifully as well as heartbreakingly captures. Language, due to its objectifying and categorizing function, positions us in the world towards others in what Martin Buber calls an I-it relationship. In this type of connection, we tend to see and treat others as objects or means to an end, rather than as unique, fully present beings. This objectifying stance reduces the depth of our interactions, making them more transactional and less about genuine connection, I guess we could say. According to Buber, but also to most philosophers, psychologists, sociologists writing and thinking in the last 100 years, this is how we engage with 99% of other humans, also non-human creatures, and indeed every living thing on this planet right now. Buber, as you may know, wrote his most famous book, I and Thou, in 1923, 100 years before this animated film and others trying to encapsulate the essence of togetherness. In this book, Buber posits the idea that true relationships transcend utilitarian interaction, which he and many others would argue is the standard model for most human interactions. We have this fantasy, often created through language, of being able to enter into a realm of genuine connection with another person, where being encounters another being in its full presence and essence. As woo-woo as that might sound, treating other human beings as means to an end and being treated by others as instruments to fulfill our own idiotic wants and desires rather than recognizing each other as individual souls with intrinsic value has become pretty much par for the course in how we all live today. This aligns with the behavioral psychology model put forth in Orion Taraban's brilliant new book, The Value of Others, in which he argues that non-transactable goods, such as the pure companionship we witness between dog and robot, can only exist outside of conventional relationships, which is to say, outside the standard transactional model of relationship that we follow, knowingly or not. Taraban's model states that relationship is a medium for the exchange of value. The other is there to provide us with what we are unable to give ourselves or have ready access to. For most men, this is sex, intimacy, companionship. For most women, who can readily access sex, but perhaps not intimacy or companionship by simply signaling their availability, this value often comes in the form of commitment and resources, where resources might include financial stability, social status, emotional support, or security. Modern relationships of any and every stripe are inherently transactional entities. Taraban shows us, focusing on this exchange of benefits and services, to date and mate with me, we could say, right, I would need to fulfill your highly specific criteria pertaining to communication style, personality style, compatibility, future goals, mutual interests, my social status and worth, both financially and socially. And for this reason, most of us stay on the hinge sushi belt, as I like to call it, until we get too fishy for consumption by anyone other than, desperados or those equally jaded as us. And so we either settle for less than we desire or continue the cycle, increasingly disillusioned, waiting for a connection that most likely will never come, at least not in our human realm. Taraban argues that while non-transactable goods such as friendship, loyalty, togetherness, and love can exist within relationships, they are not, by and large, the foundation of our human-to-human interactions. Instead, these goods are often seen as fortunate coincidences superimposed on the transactional dynamics that constitute the relationship itself. Nearly 1 in 3 American men under 30 report having had no sex in the previous 12 months, a proportion that has tripled in just the past decade. This reflects a broader disinterest in forming sexual relationships, driven by a combination of technological advancements and the increasing complexity of the sexual marketplace. Marriage rates in the US are half of what they were in the 1970s, and currently they are the lowest they have ever been. Globally, the divorce rate has doubled in the same time period. This decline is attributed to the fact that men and women kind of no longer need each other for survival as they once did, which has led to a shift where relationships are formed only when there is a mutual desire rather than some kind of necessity. For potentially the first time in human history, Taraban tells us, men and women don't really need each other. Modern man doesn't need a woman, and modern woman doesn't need a man. Since men and women no longer have to come together out of necessity, we're increasingly seeing that they only forge connections if they want to. But when there's neither need nor want, or if that want is complicated by unrealistic expectations and the prevalence of online disembodied interactions offering only superficial connections without true presence, or alternatively porn or OnlyFans, which serve as a second best, but also better than nothing stand-in, then the incentives for both men and women to put up with each other's needs and wants, or meet each other's needs and wants, are currently minimal. For most of us today, at an IU relational level, there's very little to be found of this in the human realm. Perhaps, 50 minutes with your therapist or a sex worker who certainly will give the impression of understanding, who sympathize with your life situation, or maybe, the occasional fleeting sense of connection with a friend, a voice note, a WhatsApp message, the occasional call, although people are not really doing that either to any great extent nowadays. All relationships, according to Taraban, once we really understand how they work psychologically and emotionally, are set up as I-it connections, where our interactions with the other, our partner, lover, therapist, or friend, no matter how much the connection is, adorned with unconditional loving prattle, fundamentally remains at a subconscious level transactional and utilitarian. The other person, whether we consciously realize this or not, exists merely in our inner world as an object to be used or experienced for our own benefit, and vice versa. Taraban argues that once we strip away the veneer of romance, idealization, and sentimentality, we are quite starkly able to see the dynamics of relationships as the primary medium through which value is transacted, no more, no less. If there is no value to be transacted in the form of sex, attention, companionship, excitement, security, resources, emotional support, social status, or validation, well, cheerio, nice getting to know you, but please just fuck off so that I can go and find the next person to fulfill my wants and needs. We see this at a later point in the film where Dog hooks up with a kite-flying Enneagram 7 type, a duck called Duck, who seems as if she's the one, but then ghosts him when her wanderlust overtakes her previous interest in kite flying and duck-dog intimacies. Only the thou relationship, the IU relationship between dog and robot, is able to transcend this kind of relational utility in that it involves, in its speechless togetherness, a truly genuine encounter where both parties are able to meet in their full presence and essence, creating a profound connection, we might say, that goes beyond these often disappointing and limited transactional interactions. If you have a dog or a cat in your life, or a robot like the one promised by OpenAI, fingers crossed, as opposed to another human, I probably don't need to harp on about the insufficiencies of human-to-human transactional relating to you, to understand this core difference. A word that seems to fit what dog and robot have, which most of us don't have, even with our so-called nearest and dearest, is this essential or profound togetherness. But what is this essential and profound togetherness? Who knows? So let's throw a couple of coins and have the universe answer in a way that the non-idiot might be able to better explain this somewhat elusive and countercultural concept to this idiot and to you. Thank you, idiot. So, okay, I threw me some coins and I got thunder and earth, which together make up hexagram 24 in the Yi, which is sometimes known as return. Thunder, Jun, represents movement, stimulation, and awakening. We could say that it's the force that shakes things up, leading to new beginnings or a return to something more authentic. perhaps a catalyst that encourages us to move beyond our normal transactional interactions and relationships with human creatures, seeking deeper, more genuine connections. The very essence of that I-you relationship described by Martin Buber. Thunder's energy pushes us to confront the superficiality of most connections and return to a more meaningful, presence-based way of relating. Earth, Kun, represents that receptive, nurturing and stable ground upon which all growth occurs, providing the support and sustenance needed for our lives. It is this profoundly nurturing foundation that is also required for true togetherness. Earth is the fertile ground for cultivating this I-you relationship where we encounter the other in their full presence and essence. Earth supports the idea of returning to a state of connection that is not based on need or utility, but on mutual respect and genuine presence. Hexagram 24, return, often symbolizes cyclical renewal, a return to one's true path or nature, to what is essential and authentic in us. Even though modern life may lead us into fragmented transactional relationships, there is always the potential to return to more meaningful presence-based connections, although this for many of us idiots requires establishing these connections understandably outside the realms of idiocy, which is outside the realms of personhood. A key song for this film, Max, and we see it threading its way through the narrative in different guises, is Earth, Wind and Fire, September. September, like a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire tracks, has got this quasi-ecstatic, totally giddy chorus in which the semantic content of the chorus and the song, you know, what it's about, gets swallowed up by the feeling tone of the melody so that the listener might not even know what the singer is saying, and frankly, nor do we care, because feeling is all. What is being sung in this joyful chorus, more often than not, is this phrase "Badiya" over and over again. Badiya, say, do you remember Badiya, dancing in September? Badiya, never was a cloudy day. And let us also not forget ba-do-da, 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 ba-do. Ali Willis, the American songwriter and multimedia artist who penned not only the theme tune to Friends, another paean, you could say, to Togetherness, but also, you know, co-wrote a number of these Earth, Wind and Fire hits, including September and Boogie Wonderland, alongside founder and leader of the band, Maurice White, talked in this delightful video, I'll show it to you, about September and about this Badiya phenomenon and how it came into being.
Anyway, I got this call. I went in the next day. They had already started on the intro to September, which is the hookiest thing on the planet. And I was especially bothered by the hook in the chorus that starts Badiya, say, do you remember? Badiya, dancing in September. I only had 3 syllables. Say, do you remember? 3 syllables. Dancing in September. 3 syllables. Never was a cloudy day. To me, all those lines were too trite. So I was kind of arguing for a whole new approach. And I kept saying to him, well, we're going to replace these with real words, right? And he kept kind of brushing it off.
The Badiya refrain, we learn from Ali, is what Maurice White would sing when composing and lacking the impromptu lyrics to fill a particular part in a new song. Vocables is what musicologists call these sounds, like, you know, Badiya or Bada-Buda-Ba or whatever it is, you know, where the sounds themselves carry a lot of the melody, the rhythm, and also, I guess, some other kind of essence. Vocables, especially in jazz, are often used to convey emotion, create texture, or maintain the flow of a song when the lyrics are yet to be finalized or are perhaps left intentionally absent.
It don't mean a thing. Boot-it-doot-it-doot-doot-it-doot-it-da. All you gotta do is sing. Do-it-doot-it-doot-it-doot-it-da.
And sometimes, as in the case of September, the impromptu vocables are impossible to replace with actual words without robbing the song of something essential. Imagine the chorus of September with replacement lyrics for Badia. Hey, my love, say do you remember, in your arms, dancing in September, hey, sweet love, never was a cloudy day. Do any of these other options work as well as Maurice White's Badia? No way. No way, Jose. So, finally, at the very final recording session,
I was literally on my knees, clutching his thigh, going, you have to, this is a hit song. What does Badia mean? Yeah, I actually said, what the fuck does Badia mean? And he essentially said, who the fuck cares? And it was the best lesson I ever learned. Because, what would have sounded better than that? Maurice really taught me the most important song lesson I ever got, which was never let the lyric get in the way of the groove.
another word for this groove might be feeling, but also essence. The essence of togetherness in the case of the song. But also, for Robot Dreams, togetherness transcends or perhaps has no need of language. In fact, it is often only tainted by language, limited or restricted by the inherent constraints of our linguistic expressions. The way words can often fail to fully capture the depth and immediacy of shared experience, reducing the richness of any connection to mere symbols that cannot ever encompass the fullness of what is truly felt and understood in a more essential, primal, or intuitive way. If you want to know what true, unspoken togetherness feels like, the only sounds we can produce to reflect that are perhaps, I would be arguing here, something like Badia. If you want to experience the essence of togetherness, notice how you feel in the midst of singing and dancing to the chorus of September, especially in the resonance of those Badias. At one point in I and Thou, Martin Buber writes, feelings accompany the metaphysical, or the metapsychical, in fact, the metapsychical fact of love, but they do not constitute it. Love does not cling to an I as if the you were merely its content or object. It is between I and you. Whoever does not know this with their Badia being, we could say, does not know love, does not know togetherness, even if they should ascribe to it words and feelings. Love, however, says Buber, is not an aeroplane, no. Love is a cosmic force. And Taraban likens it to sort of that connection between the sun and the earth. The sun shines, but why? It certainly doesn't shine because it expects anything in return. It's not like we could give the sun something for shining, even if we wanted to. The sun doesn't shine because we deserve it. It's not like it shines on the righteous but not on the unrighteous, or on the grateful but not on the ungrateful. If anything, it seems completely indifferent to how we feel about its light or who benefits from its refulgence. The sun shines. Orion Taraban reminds us, Orion Taraban's, even the name sounds like a planet, because it is a star, this sun, right? And it's in every star's nature to shine. Indeed, it can't not shine, which is why we so often take it for granted. Similarly, love, with a capital L, is only there really for the good of the other, and thinks, this true love, which of course none of us have in relationships, it thinks nothing of itself. If it had a desire, its only desire would be to remain in the presence of the loved one for as long as possible, i.e. togetherness. After all, this is the only possible reward of heaven, both in religious terms or when used metaphorically, right? To be allowed to remain eternally in the presence of the divine. This is the highest possible good, often misunderstood and distorted by romantic relationships and maybe even by certain kind of psychospiritual systems. You know, being in the other's company requires a continual exchange of value, or, you know, I'm praying for you, otherwise see you later. Love wants only to be in the company of the loved one. Love doesn't need a relationship to shine. Like the sun, love doesn't care, says Taraban, whether it gives everything and receives nothing in return, precisely because it's not a transactional exchange. In fact, the more it gives, the brighter it shines. Love is then badiya, badiya, badiya. Love is simply togetherness. Is that not the case, Max? Were you saying when you walked out like that, that basically I've got a atrocious singing voice?